My guest today on Dan's podcast is Alan Patricof, who has spent a lifetime in Wall Street as a venture capitalist and is very well known for one of the largest investment firms that were ever created on Wall Street. He's written a book about his life called No Red Lights, which I want to start out, sir, by asking you why you say that. Maybe no red lights might be another way of saying it. No lights, not no red lights, but maybe so. Tell me a little bit about the book and why you entitled it what you did.
Well, No Red Lights was my selection because it's, as I reflected on my own life, I really haven't let anything stand in my way.
Yes.
And I feel that I've taken advantage of every opportunity I have had, whether it's in my business life specifically, but also in politics, in theater, in art, in international activities, and car collecting, in long distance running. I've tried everything, and I continue to do that. I started my first firm when I was 36, after having been employed for 4 different firms before that. And I started my second firm in 2006 at age 72. And I started my third firm, Apax Partners, 2 years ago at 85. And I clearly, if you read the book, would say that you'll find that I have had a curiosity level and a openness to new ideas that has convinced me that my life has no red lights. And I'm 87 now. I'm training. I don't know if I'll make it. I'm training to do the marathon, to walk it in November, after having run it 5 times previously when I was in my 40s. I'm going to do a crazy thing. I'm going to Burning Man out in the desert in August. And that's the way I live my life. And I wrote the book because I wanted to inspire 2 areas, two segments of the population. One was young people, not well defined, but probably in their 20s or 30s, who are in their early stage of their career, to not get hung up on one specific aspect of their life, but rather remain open and, in fact, proactively try to make their life a more well-rounded one. And on the other side, as I say, the bookends, the other bookend is to say, when your firm says to retire at 60, there's forced retirement, or that you're thinking of that in your 60s, to think about the fact that there's a big life ahead of you, and you could very easily start on a second or third career, as I have. And you might do it in the same field because you have a lot of experience, or you might have had a dream all your life of doing something else, being a concert violinist, or being a long distance runner, or, going to law school. I don't know. But, with lifespans now running well over 100, the prospects for the number of people who are going to be over 100 in the next 5 or 6 years is pretty staggering. At 60, you've only done 60% of your life.
Right.
So my attitude is, even at 80, I intend to live to 114. So I've got 27 years left. Why
114? What is the magic? That.
I heard a gerontologist at Mount Sinai say that about 15 years ago, and said we could all live to 114. The only reason we didn't is because we had cancer, tuberculosis, pneumonia, whatever else can hit you, and perhaps accidents, and they all detract from the target. I've had several of these maladies, but I like the idea of going for 114. And so I convinced myself, and have said it so many times that I almost believe it, that I'm going to live that long. And I think today, if that same lecture were given, they'd probably say you can live to 120. Life, I've even heard crazy ideas that some kids born today will live to 150. I don't know. Seems a little far stretched, but who knows? With scientific developments and new way people are living today, anything's possible.
Talk a little bit about politics and how that fit into all this.
Well, I wouldn't say it necessarily fit in. It was a piece of the puzzle. I mean, I think it's hard to be aware of what's going on in the world and not have some interest in politics and participate in some way, whether it's in a political action group or whether supporting a candidate at any level, whether it's local or national. I think getting involved and seeing how our governments are run is a very valuable exercise for anybody.
One of the things people say about your life is to try and find something you really enjoy doing and then make it work so you can be very enthusiastic about your day after day. And I thought, given that, to ask you and tell me briefly, like a couple of sentences about each of the three businesses you founded and how they differ with one another.
Well, you're a perfect example of someone who found something they loved and stuck with it. My first firm was called Alan Patricof Associates, and then the name was changed to Apax as we got bigger. And we were started out as a venture capital firm, and today it's a very, very large private equity firm, and which was one of the reasons why I stepped aside in the early 2000s, because I really got more enjoyment out of startups and early stage companies. And so after a brief respite of a few years where I did a lot of pro bono work for the IF, International Finance Corp, and the World Bank, I traveled around the world trying to stimulate entrepreneurial development. I decided to start a new firm, Graycroft, which went back to my roots and was a pure venture capital firm. That firm has now grown to the point where it is becoming also a much more later stage firm. And so I became fascinated with the whole subject of the aging society and decided to start a firm 2 years ago with a younger partner to focus on investing in any products, services, technologies, experiences that related to what I call the ageless baby boomer generation, of which you and I are part.
I was reading about some of your greatest hits, and there was one that you wished you had that I want you to talk about. I don't remember which one it was, but you seemed to feel that you somehow missed the boat, but you thought about it and decided no. What was that?
That was Starbucks. And it was because it was brought to me by someone in our office on the West Coast. And I couldn't relate to the idea of starting up a chain of coffee shops in New York when at that time there were 2 coffee shops on every block. I used to go to chock full of nuts every single morning before I went to work. And in the 1980s, when Starbucks came about, there was a 3-unit or 4-unit coffee chain in Seattle. And I just didn't, I was too parochial and looking at it, and I didn't realize that it was not a coffee shop, but rather a community, a way of congregating, of interacting with people, and it was more for hanging out as opposed to uh, quick luncheonettes that were the main focus in New York. So it was really being parochial, I think, and I learned from that not to think about what necessarily is good for me or good for the world I live in, but really what might have a bigger market opportunity.
Was there anything you took a good bet on that everyone said don't do it, but you did it, that you can think of that stands out?
Uh, well, when we went into the cellular business, no one had any expectation that cellular would be as big as it is today. That was the early 80s, year before, so it was like 80, 81 or 82. At that time, people were using, to whatever extent, the radio telephone, which were klutzy instruments and bad reception. And even AT&T and Motorola, which were the leaders in the field, estimated that the penetration would be 1 or 2%. And I have to tell you, it's now been probably closer to 100% penetration of cellular. So there was a case of, better technologies and understanding what the market potential was if this technology were available. And so we made a big success out of that investment.
It seems that there are a couple of standout individuals who, when they were younger and even now, have become tremendously successful. And some of them I think of as geniuses. And I wanted to mention Elon Musk and also the founder of Apple, whose name at the moment escapes me.
Steve Jobs. No, you're right. In my opinion, those are two brilliant, irascible individuals who think out of the box and have broken new ground in all the areas they've been involved in. So you've got to hats off to them.
Oh, well, is there anything at the moment? I guess you don't want to share what you have and what you think is going to do. That would probably start a stampede in some way. Who was it who once said that if you ever see a stampede, you missed it? So it is a bandwagon. That was the quote. I forget which.
No, but I don't think there's anything that's obvious. I mean, it could be solar, it could be space, could be hydrogen fuels, new forms of batteries. I mean, that's what's great and exciting about this country. There's always new technologies on the horizon.
I wanted to ask you how you got interested in all of this in the first place. I read in your biography that you were a New Yorker and we went to Columbia and did business school and so forth. And where did you go after that in your life, and what were you thinking?
Well, I went to Ohio State.
Yeah.
And then I went to Columbia.
Right.
I from the beginning I had kind of focused on the financial area as my career choice, but I also, as I said to the beginning, I have led a very diversified life and do that to this day. My life doesn't center around finance or venture capital. It has many more facets to it, and I think that's what I hope my book will inspire people, young ones and older ones, but for two different stages of life. And that's really what counts now. It's not your age, but your stage. You are whatever you are in age, but the stage you're at is still an active one.
Right.
There are other people who have maybe the same age, but they're inactive, or they're in transition, or they're preparing for, going to play golf all day.
Speaking of which, What brought you out here to the Hamptons the first time you came?
My first wife brought me out there, and actually, she brought me out here to see the place because she had a young girl had gone to the Anita Zahn School of Dance when she was, I guess, even less than a teenager, and remembered the area fondly. And we drove out here, and that was my first exposure. My second one was 10, 15 years later when I came out. I had been living in the upstate New York on the weekends, but decided that the Hamptons were a much more attractive area for bringing up children and a family and building a life.
So did you make it your home year-round, or just to come and go?
Just come and go, but during COVID, I spent a fair amount of time here.
Yeah. Well, we all did. I certainly did too. Well, is there anything else? Is there a parting word that you can tell me about that would be on your mind at this point, and then we'll wind things up?
Only that I'd like to encourage people, as I say with this book, is for younger people to keep their eyes open, be curious, be open to opportunities, and seek out opportunities. And for the ageless generation to not look at life as being over when you have your first chapter of your life, or your in your 60s. If you find yourself at the end of a career, it's never too late to start again in some area. And I think that in itself will enable you to stay alive a lot longer. If you think about it, if my crazy idea of 114 makes any sense, or 120, at 60, you've only lived half your life.
Yes.
So people should think early about what they want to do with the last half of their life.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on this show. I want to tell people that I'm talking to Alan Patricof, who's had a remarkable life and has come out with a new book called No Red Lights. And thanks for being here.
Well, you can buy it at Bookhampton or online.
Yep. Bye-bye. Good to talk.
Thanks for having me.
See you up at the Atlantic.